Okay, Chairman, I think we are ready.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And at this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can identify for the record everybody who's present. Linda?
Wendy Bingesser,
Wendy Bingesser, present.
Mike Bain,
I'm here.
Karen Brownlee,
Karen Brownlee here.
Vicki Charlesworth,
Here.
Jim Denning. Jim may be a little bit late. If he's not on yet, he should be joining shortly. Jane Dirks,
Here.
Jimmy Gaona,
Jimmy Gaona, present.
thank you. Ted Hausch,
Andrew House here.
thank you. Randy Hutchins,
Here.
was that you, Randy?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Chris Iliff,
Here.
Laura Klingensmith,
Laura Klingsmith here.
Joy Keston,
Joy Costin is here.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Brent McCune,
Here.
Eric Michelson,
Here.
Greg Musel,
Greg Musil here.
Ed Peterson,
Ed Peterson here.
Don Ratton,
Here.
Leslie Riverola,
I am here.
thank you. Don Roberts, Don Roberts. Okay, I'll come back to that. Kyle Russell,
Al Russell here.
Paula Swack,
Paula Schwank here.
Brenda Sharp,
Brenda Sharp here.
Greg Shelton,
Here.
Greg Smith,
Greg Smith here.
Zach Thomas,
Zach Thomas here.
okay? And is Don Roberts on?
Don Roberts has not signed in yet.
Okay, thank you. And has Jim Denning signed in yet?
Negative.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we'll take a few minutes before we begin action on the agenda. And let me say this, the agenda is simply a recommendation. The commission can change it or alter it in any way they would like. So it is simply a recommendation. Let me say this, Linda Sater, who's the deputy clerk, will be assisting me today when we get to the election of the chair. And so don't hesitate to call your name if you desire to speak as that process goes on. Following the election of the chair, I will step away, and whomever receives the majority of the votes as chair will assume chairmanship of the commission from that point forward. Some of the things that you might be discussing today involve meeting schedules. And let me offer this. The Arts and Heritage Center we will try to coordinate and make available. The large conference area there can support perhaps 75 or more people who are socially distanced. And downstairs in the admin building, we have a large room, but probably would not accommodate that many people. So whatever the decision is made by the group, we stand ready to accommodate. And but those are a couple of possibilities for meeting areas. We do have also, besides Linda Sater, on our Zoom portion of the meeting today, Deputy County Manager Maury Thompson and Chief Counsel, Interim Chief Counsel Cynthia Dunham. So, and let me underscore that anyone in the county manager's office, including the county manager, or others associated with the county manager or department directors are available for interviews by the commission. Also, I'm just referring to 10 years ago, the entire county commission, all 7 of us were invited to present any items that we might have or thoughts that we might have in regards to the charter. So whatever information can be provided by the commission, by the county manager's office or department directors, you can schedule that through Linda, and we will be glad to accommodate that. Anything that I've left out, Linda, in general?
The only thing I would offer, I spoke with our DTI Chief Administrative Officer, and we will, whatever is decided about the meetings and whether it's hybrid or in person or virtual, however we go forward, we will need to make sure that technology-wise that we can handle that. So hopefully you guys let me know what you want to do, and we will work out something with the location and how we need to handle it with technology.
I would, good point. I would just simply add that during the pandemic, the Board of County Commissioners has adopted a policy that any commissioner or staff member who wants to participate in the commission meeting virtually is welcome to do so. And so that's the policy that we've adopted. And I will say this, and again, this is my take on what the commission discussed on March 25 when we made the decision to in regards to the public health order. At that time, the public health order, any restrictions were removed on the public health order except for masking and distancing until the end of April. The goal for that decision was that by the end of April, we would have 50% or 50% plus of our qualified residents to be vaccinated. And if that were the case, then the discussion would focus on, and I believe there was general agreement that the requirement for mask and distancing would become recommendations. So just, you can keep that in mind, and we'll find out for sure on the 29th of April. So Linda, has the mayor or Senator Denning clicked in?
Let's see here.
Okay, if not, excuse me.
I do not see them yet.
Okay, well, we need to go ahead and proceed with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is to elect a chair of the Charter Commission. And at this point in time, Linda, would you tell us procedurally, we'll accept nominations and seconds to those nominations. And then when it comes to declaring a vote, there will be a roll call and that will be conducted by last names. So anything that I've left out, Linda?
I don't think so.
All right. Are there any questions or comments by commission members on anything that I've said at this point?
If you guys can raise your hand, I will try to call on you. Or otherwise, please give your name and speak up.
Yeah.
And
Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Eilert, this is Christopher Eilert. I don't have any questions, but I do have a nomination for chair.
All right, go right ahead.
I'd like to nominate Greg Musel as the, for chair. In support of my nomination, I would point out that Greg currently serves on the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. He has served as an Overland Park City Councilman for 8 years. He's won more awards for his legal work than than time would permit. And he has proven himself as a good leader in many, many respects. And in that regard, I think he'd serve as an excellent chairman for this group.
All right, the nomination has been made. Is there a second?
I will second that nomination. This is
And that is?
Brent McKeon.
All right. Mr. McCune has seconded the nomination. Other nominations?
Chairman Eilert, this is Randy Hutchins.
Yes, Randy.
If he's so moved to step up and take the position, I'd like to recommend Chris Eilert, given his vast amount of experience being chairman of the planning and development staff and his overall knowledge of the workings of Johnson County.
All right, so noted. Chris, do you respond to that?
Yeah, I'm going to thank you, Randy. That's really kind of you. But by virtue of nominating Greg, I've essentially said that I don't want the job. So I'm going to decline the nomination, but thank you very much.
Okay, so noted. Other nominations? All right, going once. Any other nominations? Going twice. Any other nominations? Going 3 times. Any other nominations? All right, there are no further nominations other than Greg Musel. Are there any comments or discussion?
Chairman,
right.
is it procedurally, when you have no other nominations, is it required we still do the roll call vote, or can we move to accept the nomination via acclamation?
No, I will just simply ask for those who are in favor, say aye, and those opposed say nay. So we will not need to do a roll call in this case. Okay, Mr. Musel's name is before us. Those in favor of that say aye.
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 And those opposed? All right, there is no one noted in opposition. So, Mr. Musel, congratulations. The meeting is yours, sir, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Eilert, and thank you for the confidence from the other members of the commission, Charter Commission. I don't know whether that indicates how much you like me or how much you don't like me, but I do appreciate this and think it's a very important role that we will play as part of the county government in its 10-year, what I kind of call a mini constitutional convention. So I hope that part of what you've shown in agreeing to let me chair the group is that you understand that I will be fair and be a good listener. I did learn some parliamentary procedure from 4-H. I learned how to listen to others and be open for my parents. And I'm still learning on how to be patient. So I will try to do a better job of that than I do sometimes. I've thought about this, and several of you had called me to see if I would be willing to do this, and I said I would. And I'm going to use 2 watchwords, I think, that I hope everybody on the commission will use, which is civility and grace. I've used those throughout COVID-19 as I chaired the Community College Board of Trustees and in other charitable and civic groups where we are meeting by Zoom. There are lots of things going on now that have frayed nerves and caused some dissension. And I think our isolation and insulation from other humans to some extent makes it easier to be sharper edge than we need to be. And I've really appreciated the people on this group. Everybody here, I think, has shown that they can work well with others. And that's what we're going to need to do the best job for the people of Johnson County. I know a lot of you. I don't know some of you at all. I'm looking forward, now that I have both my vaccines, to maybe getting to know you each personally over coffee, in addition to working with you on the Charter Commission. So with that, I think the next item of business is to elect other officers. And I think the first thing I might say is that in reviewing the 2011 Charter Commission, I think they left us a pretty good roadmap of how we could proceed. I don't really know the exact role of a treasurer and a secretary, but I think what I'd like to do is have us consider electing a vice chair, a secretary, and a treasurer, and that the four of us would serve as a kind of executive committee that I would look to when we prepare agendas and we prepare proposals that might summarize something the commission thought about doing the previous meeting. So I think the next item then would be to accept nomination in a second for the position of vice chair. And so the floor is open for any such nominations. I will try to recognize a raised hand physically or electronically.
We have Zach Thomas.
Chairman, I'd like to congratulate you, be the first one here formally to congratulate you on your newly received position, and I look forward to working with you. I would like to nominate Don Retan as vice chair for this Charter Commission.
Is there a second for the nomination of Don Retan?
I second.
Commissioner Costin. It's going to be complicated. I noticed in reading the last report, when we referred to commissioners, it was hard to figure out if we're talking about county commissioners or charter commissioners. So hopefully one of the things I think we can be is informally formal or formally informal, so that we don't act like this is the House of Commons or even the House of Representatives. Is there
Chairman Musel, I would like to have on the record that Don Roberts just connected to our meeting. Don Roberts is here now.
Mayor Roberts, welcome. You were able to abstain from the vote for chair. I'm Greg Musel, and I was elected chair, and we're now ready for nominations for vice chair. We have nominated Don Retan, nominated by Zach Thomas and seconded by Joy Costin. Are there other nominations for the position of vice chair? Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your position. And I would like to nominate Karen Brownlee for vice chair.
Is there a second to the nomination of Karen Brownlee?
Don Roberts. I'll second.
Seconded by Don Roberts. So Karen Brownlee and Don Retan. Are there other nominations? I think when we get done with nominations, we'll let the nominator explain the reasons for their nomination rather than do it each time. Are there other nominations other than Don Retan and Karen Brownlee? If not, I'll accept a motion for the nominations to cease. See, Ed Peterson has raised his hand for the motion maker. Is there a second?
Brenda Sharp.
Brenda Sharp seconds. I think, again, for these procedural motions, we will do it by acclamation. If it looks like it's close, we'll vote by roll call. All those in favor of nominations ceasing after the nominations of Don Retan and Karen Brownlee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. That motion carries. Zach Thomas, would you like to explain your nomination of Don Retan, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I've known the Retan family for a very long time now. I know Ms. Retan is an engineer working at Procter & Gamble. She served on, or was a candidate for city council. She's been very involved in the community. I think she is one that is very easily approachable to talk to handle things, and is very patient to coincide with what we lack from the chairman, as he self-described. I think she would be an absolute fantastic addition to the chair, to the executive board, as Chairman Musil stated, and I throw my support behind her 100%.
I think we'll take other comments on behalf. Oh, Dawn, I see you checked in.
Procter and Gamble for 11 years, so former employee of Procter and Gamble.
And I should have asked Dawn and Karen. I'm going to gather that neither one of you declined the nomination, and just wave at me if that's right. You agree to be nominated? Okay. Other comments in support of Dawn Retan? If not, then Greg Smith, would you speak on behalf of Karen Brownlee, your nominee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I nominated Karen because of her long service to Johnson County and the state of Kansas. She has a exceptional reputation as a legislator, as a county council person, and I believe that her experience would serve the committee well.
Other comments in support of Karen Brownlee? If not, I believe we'll move to a vote. And Linda, as you call each name, would you respond? I think we're going to need to do some part of the formality because we're subject to the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and we need to keep a record. So please state your name and then simply say whether you vote for Dawn Retan or Karen Brownlee.
Okay. Wendy Bingesser.
Wendy Bingesser in support for Karen Brownlee.
Mike Boehm.
Mike Boehm in support of Karen Brownlee.
Karen Brownlee.
Brownlee in support of Brownlee.
Vicki Charlesworth.
Vicki Charlesworth in support of Dawn Retan.
Is Jim Denning in the meeting yet? I do
No,
not.
he's not.
Thank you. Jane Dirks.
Jane Dirks in support of Karen Brownlee.
Jim Gaona.
Jimmy Gaona, support of Dawn Retan.
Ted Hausch.
Karen Brownlee.
And that was Ted Hausch, correct?
Yeah, Ted Reed.
Thank you. Randy Hutchins.
I sustain.
Excuse me?
Sustain.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Chris Iliff.
Chris Iliff in favor of Dawn Retan.
Laura Klingensmith.
Laura Klingensmith in support of Karen Brownlee.
Joy Costin.
Joy Costin in support of Dawn Retan.
Brent McCune. Brent.
My support is with Karen Brownlee. I'm sorry.
With Karen Brownlee.
Yes.
Thank you. Eric Michelson.
Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Greg Musil.
With the concurrence of the group, I'm going to pass to the end, and rather than
Yes,
be in
I'm
a
sorry.
position of picking my vice chair.
Ed Peterson.
Ed Peterson in support of Dawn Retan.
Dawn Retan.
Yes.
Thank you. Now Dawn Retan.
Dawn Retan in support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Leslie Riverola.
Leslie Riverola in support of Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Don Roberts.
Don Roberts in support of Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Kyle Russell.
Kyle Russell in support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Paula Swak.
In support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Brenda Sharp.
Brenda Sharp in support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Greg Shelton.
Greg Shelton in support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. Greg Smith.
Greg Smith in support of Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas in support of Dawn Retan.
Thank you. And Chairman Musil.
Chairman Musil would like to think that leadership in this case might understand that what the vote is today so that I don't have to pick and choose between them. I hope nobody considers that a lack of gutlessness, but I think both of these are strong candidates. And if my vote makes a difference, I will certainly make my vote known.
Chairman, at this time, I show that the vote is for Don Rattan for 12 and Karen Brownlee for 10. And we have one abstain, and therefore you have abstained, I'm assuming also.
I will abstain and congratulate both Karen and Dawn. I think both of you would have been excellent as vice chair. Dawn, congratulations. Don Rattan is our vice chair.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. And I think we've definitely got a lot of work from 10 years ago. The pace of culture change, technology has quadrupled, quintupled. And so we'll definitely have some things to get into to make the county the best it can be.
Thank you. The next, is there any objection to moving on and electing a treasurer and a secretary? We're completely open on who we can elect as officers. Greg Shelton?
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the commission, I move we close nominations of officers and proceed with chair and vice chair only.
Moved by Greg Shelton and seconded by Brett McCune that the only officers be the chair and vice chair. Further discussion, Mr. Shelton?
Open it up to the group. I had just, based on what we saw from 10 years ago and based on the chairman's opening comment, it's unclear what benefit we get from having secretary and treasurer. So in an effort to keep our meetings efficient and focused, I propose that we move forward with chair and vice chair only.
And my only, as I mentioned earlier, our minutes are going to be taken by county staff, and our finances are going to be handled by county staff, although a treasurer, I suppose, could be helpful in coordinating that. My thought was that it might be helpful to have 4 officers simply to serve as an executive committee, but I'm certainly open to the thought of the commission. First, Ms. Costin, and then Ms. Sharp.
You know, just as a question to the group, would it be beneficial for us to have a secretary who would serve kind of in a joint fashion to as a liaison between the commission staff and the exec board? I'm not sure a treasurer is really needed. There's no money concerned, but perhaps one more person on the board or the exec committee might be useful in that capacity.
Brenda?
My question was just going to be, is there anything that prevents us from adding those positions at a later date? Should we really believe we need them? I kind of lean toward Mr. Shelton's proposal that the fewer people we have in making decisions or guiding us, I guess, I'm more of a proponent of this larger body making those decisions together and having you and Dawn set the agenda essentially and lead us through the work of the day. But that would be my preference. But I didn't know if there's anything prohibits us from adding an officer later if we really need that.
I will defer as usual to the acting county councilor, Cynthia Dunham, if she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have the ultimate authority to determine who our officers are. And to me, that would indicate we could determine when they were. I think at the first meeting, you're supposed to elect officers, but I don't see any reason why we can't defer that if that's the wish of the commission. The first thing Dawn and I will probably do is double our salaries. Any further discussion on the motion?
Chairman Musel, this is Linda Sater, the clerk. I would have one question to Cynthia Dunham. Is at this point in time, the minutes are signed. I will attest them as the clerk and note that I've done the minutes. But at this time, there is a signature for the secretary. Cynthia, can you speak to that? Is that an issue or can we change that procedure?
This is Cindy Dunham, the interim chief counsel. If it's the commission's pleasure to not have a secretary, then I think we could go ahead and change that. And just, I would note that the charter, the home rule charter specifically provides that you elect your own officers. It does not prescribe those specific offices.
Cindy, I'm looking at the statute, which says at such meeting, which is this meeting,
Yes.
the commission shall organize by the election of a chairman, vice chairman, and secretary, and such other officers as it may deem necessary. Does section 6 or whatever of the home rule charter allow us to opt out of those statutory requirements?
Our position is home rule charter has overridden to the extent it is, and there's a couple of times it's done that, where it talks about how the future charter commissions will operate. So to the extent that you're given direction in the home rule charter as adopted by the voters as to how to operate, if there's even a perceived conflict, we have interpreted the home rule charter to be controlling, because that's one of the things the statute says is the voters can determine how the home rule charter for future commissions will operate. And that's what happened when it was adopted. So it does not specifically dictate that you have to have all those officers in the charter itself.
Mayor Mickelson has his hand up.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairman, and congratulations. You know, if there's any ambiguity or doubt, you know, given the language you read, and there's this one potential role for a secretary that was articulated in terms of serving as a liaison, I'm all in favor of efficiency and either not doing a treasurer or combining it into one secretary treasurer role. But I guess I'm a little unclear on the downside of having a secretary treasurer. I don't know that we're imbuing, conferring any authority other than the chairman's ability to run a meeting on any officer. So I still have an open mind, but I see those two reasons to have one, and I'm not quite sure what the reason not to have one would be. But anyway, those are my thoughts.
Ms. Riverola?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would actually concur with Mayor Michelson. I would, given that it sets forth the opportunity to have a secretary, I think we had another nomination that was not selected. I would like to see Commissioner Brownlee appointed as the secretary to the group. I think it helps round things out.
Other comments? We're still discussing the motion to limit officers to the chair and vice chair. Anybody else want to make any comments? Greg Smith and then Ed Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree that at least a third on the executive committee would provide some balance. That way there's not a tie if it comes down to something that the executive committee is trying to decide. And I think it would be a good idea to at least have a secretary. I do agree that the treasurer position is probably more of an honorary position than anything else, but I think a secretary would be prudent to have.
Ed Peterson.
I'd like to, yeah, Mr. Chairman, again, I'll add my congratulations. I guess it's an honor, huh? I would like to give the moving party here an opportunity to explain their thinking about limiting the executive committee to just the two.
Yeah, again, my thinking behind it is simply from an efficiency standpoint, keeping the exec committee to those two positions allows them to work more efficiently, less coordination, and like we've heard others mention, they get to really focus on guiding us, leading us, setting the agenda, and then most of the discussion, debate, and deliberation lies with the larger body.
Brenda Sharp. And again,
Chair,
could we give your name when you're called on to speak so that the record's clear? Thank you, Brenda.
Sure. Brenda Sharp. I was just going to say I had no issue with Leslie's proposal. I think that makes sense. And if it just moves this process along, I would be fine with taking a vote on the other motion and perhaps hearing another one.
I see no other hands physically or electronically raised.
When roll call is called, on Greg Shelton's motion, Wendy Bingesser says no on the motion.
Okay, yeah, we're not ready to, thank you, Wendy. We haven't gotten to the vote yet. I will, Greg, I appreciate the thought of efficiency. I think I would appreciate a third voice. I like the suggestion of Leslie that we consider Karen Brownlee as a secretary. I think it gives another voice to the extent the leadership of this group. We've got 25 leaders in this group. So I think I will be voting against the motion and then hoping we do have a secretary. Zach Thomas.
Well, you just answered my question, Chairman. I was going to ask what the chair and vice chair thought on this in terms of working forward. So having heard what you just said, I'll put my hand down and give the floor back to you.
And yeah, I would say with Mrs. Brownlee's qualifications, I think that her voice is definitely valued in this process, and definitely a tiebreaker as well. But I also agree with Greg, and most of the information should be forwarded to this group, and it should be as transparent as possible.
Mr. Chair, if it's all right with you, I'll go ahead and withdraw my motion and save us the trouble of a vote.
Okay. Greg has withdrawn his motion, and did Brent McCune second it?
Second, yes.
Are you comfortable with withdrawal as well?
Yes, I'll withdraw my second.
I'm going to take that as direction that we move on and elect a secretary and ask if there are nominations and a second for secretary. Leslie, do you have one?
I do. Thank you. I would like to nominate Karen Brownlee for secretary.
Second.
Seconded by Brett McCune. Motion made by Leslie Riverola. Eric Michelson, comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to nominate Ed Peterson for secretary.
Ed Peterson has been nominated by Eric Michelson. Is there a second?
I would second that motion. This is Paula Schwach.
All right, Ed Peterson has been nominated for secretary. Is there another nomination for secretary? If not, is there a motion that nominations cease with the nominations of Karen Brownlee and Ed Peterson?
Move that nomination cease. Kyle Russell.
Thank you, Kyle. A second?
Chris Isla seconds.
Chris Isla seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. That motion carries. We'll now go through a roll call vote for secretary.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Eric.
Are we going to speak a little bit about the candidates?
Good point. Let's go in order of nomination. Anybody that would like to speak on behalf of Karen Brownlee. Leslie, you'll have the first opportunity as the nominator.
Thank you, Chairman Leslie Riverola. I think to echo what Commissioner Smith said earlier, Karen Brownlee is a seasoned contributor not only to politics but to the Johnson County area as a whole, and I think she would serve this group very well. So,
other comments in support of the nomination of Karen Brownlee? Okay, Eric, Greg Smith.
Mr. Chairman, not to be cumulative, but again, I do support the nomination of Karen Brownlee for the reasons I stated earlier.
Other comments in support of Karen Brownlee? If not, Eric, we'll start with you. Comments in support of Ed Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Ed Peterson is, a dedicated public servant. He's been the mayor of Fairway for many years and then a Johnson County Commissioner for, I believe, a decade. And I believe among his many other qualities, he can bring that inner knowledge of the workings of the county from having served as a county commissioner to the executive board, which I think would be important given our task here. Thank you.
Other comments in support of Ed Peterson for secretary? If
Mr.
not,
Chairman,
Lynn- oh,
Mr.
Kyle?
Chairman, Kyle Russell, I just was going to echo what's been said by Mayor Michelson. Commissioner Peterson, former Mayor Peterson, was my county commissioner for the whole time he was on the county commission. I think he's a great public servant. I also support his nomination.
Other comments in support of Mr. Peterson? If not, I believe we're ready for a vote. Linda, if you'd call the roll call, and as you give your name, indicate whether you're voting in favor of Karen Brownlee or Ed Peterson for secretary.
Wendy Bingesser.
Wendy Bingesser, Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Mike Boehm.
Mike Boehm, Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Karen Brownlee. Karen, are you?
Brownlee for Brownlee.
Thank you. Vicki Charlesworth.
Vicki Charlesworth, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Jim Denning, as far as I'm showing, he is still not on the meeting. If you are, Jim, please speak up. Okay, thank you. Jane Dirks.
Jane Dirks, Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Jimmy Gaona.
Jimmy Gaona, Brownlee.
Thank you. Ted Housh.
Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Randy Hutchins.
Randy Hutchins, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Chris Iliff.
Chris Iliff, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Laura Klingensmith.
Laura Klingensmith, Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Joy Costin.
Joy Costin, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Brent McCune.
Brownlee.
Thank you. Eric Michelson.
Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Greg Musel. I'm sorry, I'll do you at the end. Sorry about that. Ed Peterson.
Ed Peterson for Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Don Ratton.
Peterson.
Was that Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Leslie Riverola.
Leslie Riverola, Brownlee.
Thank you. Don Roberts.
Don Roberts, Brownlee.
Thank you. Kyle Russell.
Kyle Russell for Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Paula Swak.
Paula Schwach for Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Brenda Sharp.
Brenda Sharp, Brownlee.
Thank you. Greg Shelton.
Greg Shelton, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. Greg Smith.
Greg Smith for Karen Brownlee.
Thank you. Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas, Ed Peterson.
Thank you. And Chairman Musel, would you like to vote now?
In the interest of respecting the majority, my vote will not make a difference other than to throw it into a tie, and which we could not break because we don't have our odd number of people here. So I'm going to abstain again, and Ed Peterson will be elected as our secretary. Congratulations, Ed. Look forward to working with you and Dawn.
Thank you very much. I remember one of the highlights of being on the commission was working with the Charter Commission, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to make sure we've got the best government going forward for the next 10 years. So appreciate the support and look forward to working with the rest of you. I'd echo what Greg said, Greg Musel, that I really look forward to the opportunity to get to know some of you. I think it's a good chance for various segments in our community to kind of come together and become acquainted. So I look forward to working with you all.
All right, thank you. Before we move on from election of officers, is there anybody that believes we need additional officers including a treasurer or other designated officer that we would utilize in the role of helping as an executive committee. I see no hands raised. So, Joy Costin.
Do we need a parliamentarian to be appointed?
That's a good question. I would hope to defer. One of the things I thought about when people asked me to do this position is whether in 2011 there were some very specific and rather lengthy rules adopted, many of which I agree with, but I was hoping that maybe everybody would agree that we could put together, and that's one of the reasons I wanted an executive committee of sorts, to put together some governing body rules that would include some basic parliamentary rules, and that otherwise we would rely on Robert's rules using Ms. Dunham, if possible, as the parliamentarian for that. The way I've always run meetings is try to run them based on my understanding of the Robert's Rules of Order, understanding completely that any ruling of the chair can be overruled by a majority of the members present, assuming there's a quorum. So I think we can probably, if the commission wants to nominate and elect a parliamentarian, I guess that's certainly within our purview. But that would be my idea of how to move forward, would be to present some rules in advance of the next meeting so that everybody has a chance to look at them. Keep them pretty basic, rely generally on Robert's rules, which is not a simplistic set of rules. The latest edition is this thick. And then hope you would rely somewhat on the reasonableness of the chair and your ability to tell me when I'm wrong. Is there anybody else that believes it would be helpful to, I guess, appoint or elect a parliamentarian at this stage? It's a good question. I think we'll defer that, and at the end of the meeting, what I would probably do is put something out to ask everybody to, if they have some suggestions on specific rules, and then try to work with Dawn and Ed as quickly as possible to put something together that outlines a basic framework. One thing that we should make clear, that when I talked about civility and grace, I didn't exclude disagreement. I didn't exclude vigorous debate or discussion. But we will do so in a respectful manner, and understanding that what makes us stronger is when we disagree with one another, and we all use our two ears and our one mouth in that proportion. So I think with that, unless I see anybody's hand, we will move on from the election of officers. And this is completely out of sequence and out of order that I had planned on today. The chair election went a little faster than I expected. I was going to disclose at the start of it for both myself and the county manager, Penny Post Oak Ferguson, that when she was elevated to the county manager position, I think it was in 2019, I represented her in negotiating the legal terms of her contract with the county commission. And she continues when necessary, which has not been necessary, but to ask me as her attorney for advice as to her employment agreement. I want to make sure that's disclosed, and if anybody has any questions or comments on that, should have done it before the election happened so quickly. If there is a point in this process where we're discussing the county manager's role, and anybody at any time feels like that compromises my ability to be objective on it, I would appreciate you telling me publicly or privately, and I will recuse myself and let Dawn take over that portion of the meeting. I think Dawn mentioned earlier transparency, and I think that's important for all of us. We all come from various positions. A lot of us have elected positions or former elected positions, and some of us have positions in private business that may intersect with the county government. So thank you. The next item on the agenda, I believe, was the approval of the minutes from the March 1st, 2021 meeting. Those were circulated, several pages of minutes. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Chairman, I will state, and if they want to state for themselves, I got an email from Kyle Russell of a couple things to change, and I have made those changes to the current copy that would be approved and signed. So I will state those if there's anything more. Kyle Russell, his name was actually spelled incorrectly twice, and I've added an extra L at the end. There was also, I had a typo at the bottom of page 3 of the minutes where I had the commission may hold more, and it should have been may hold more. And I have made that correction. I also had a correction from Karen Brownlee. On page 3, there was a date which I had given that the final report has to be presented to the county commissioners. And I had stated March of 2021. I have corrected that to be March of 2022. And then also I had spelled under her being the Olathe City Council, I had spelled council wrong. And therefore I have made that correction.
Too bad we've closed nominations for proofreaders because Karen and Kyle would have those positions in a landslide. Thank you both for being so careful on review of the minutes. You now have released 23 other members of the commission not to be so careful in the future. Any other additions or corrections to those that Linda just described?
Chairman, it was correctly written down, but I misspoke, so I just wanted to correct it. This is Jimmy Guyana. I am part of the Olathe Latino Leadership Network, not the Olathe Coalition. Just wanted to correct that, and has since changed its name to the Latino Leadership Network. So,
did you get that, Linda?
Excuse me, Jim. That should be the Olathe Latino
Leadership Network. That was my misspoke, though. You wrote it down correctly.
I'll make that change before it is actually signed if it goes further to be approved with adjustments.
Zach Thomas.
Only correction I saw, Linda, was my name spelled with an H instead of a K, Z-A-C-H.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to give Linda credit for making sure we all paid attention. Right, Linda?
Mr. Chairman, as long as we're getting into minor corrections, my last name is spelled with one L in the list of people, so it's I-L-I-F-F. So Linda, if you'd make that change, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We have some unique names among this group, so I know Linda will get them from this point forward. Any other additions or corrections?
Oh, Mr. Chair, just on Chris's note, it's misspelled on the roster then as well. I just double checked that, so.
I will work on that, correct it.
Or we could have a motion to have Chris spell his name differently.
Well, I'd like that, actually. I might accept that. I might second that motion.
Other additions or corrections? Everybody comfortable that they understand all those additions and corrections? If so, if somebody would make a motion to approve the minutes as amended and corrected.
Chairman Zach Thomas would make the motion to approve minutes as edited.
Is there a second?
Ed Peterson will second.
Ed Peterson seconds the motion. Any discussion? Not all in favor of the approval of the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Thank you. No old business. We move into new business, and as Chair Eilert had mentioned, there were suggestions on there which I concurred with as I reviewed those. There may be more that we get to as we go through those, but I would recommend we walk through those initially, and I'm going to go through them generally first, and then we'll go back to each one. Meeting schedule. How often do we want to meet? In 2011, they met every 2 weeks for 2 hours. The second was a public hearing date. In 2011, they held 2 public hearings. We're obligated by statute to hold 1. The first one they held was before the commission had heard from the various people within county government to get kind of a baseline from the public. And then after hearing from county government officials and the various agencies and discussing various proposals for potential either charter amendments or resolutions, they held a second public hearing to respond to those more specific directions that the commission had discussed. We also need to discuss the location and form both of our own meetings, whether by Zoom or in person or in hybrid. And I think the location and format of the public meetings. The other thing that was on there was meeting topics, how we are going to get to a list of topics worth discussing and how we're going to prioritize those. And then finally, the website. So those are the topics we need to get through in the next hour. One of the other things I wanted to mention was in most of these meetings, if we're having 2-hour meetings, I'm going to plan on a 5-minute break in the middle of them. And is there a need for a 5-minute break now? We're going to power on through and see if we can get through this. Okay. Let's talk first about an idea of how frequently we need to meet. I think the last time, and Chair Allard, I think you're still on here. Well, Mike Bain was on that. You met 2 times a month for 2 hours for about 6 months, if I remember right. Is that right, Mayor?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that is 24 hours of meetings, including the public hearings, or were the public hearings in addition to that, Mike?
I think that was additional time.
Additional time. So I think the question really is, how much time do each of you think we might need to review? And I know it is based somewhat on where we come from and how familiar we are with the county government. I think the structure last time made a lot of sense to hear from current and former county commissioners, county staff, the board chair of the various agencies that are within the county government, and then moving on to individual topics that individual commissioners might want to put on the table. I don't know how long that's going to take, and we don't have to decide exactly today how many meetings we're going to have, but we will need to decide put some parameters around this. Mayor Bain.
Greg, I'd like to make a suggestion or to the group. Most of us aren't versed well in day-to-day operations of the county. I think last time, while having a public meeting up front brought information to us with our minds wide open, frankly blank in many cases, it really didn't do a whole lot of good if we didn't have some county background and information from the department heads prior to having that public meeting. You just listened. You really couldn't react to anything or have the foundation to make any decisions or frankly create any direction from that public input until we had a little more knowledge of the county. I think also it makes sense early while we're revving up the engine that we meet more frequently. Once we get into the conversations a little bit, we will determine how much time between meetings is necessary to provide time for staff or whomever to provide input back to us. So while I think it made sense to start with every 2 meetings, I think frankly we should schedule it every 2 meetings with the option and the knowledge that somewhere throughout the process we may delay at a commission meeting, not having one in 2 weeks while we wait for input. So I think we want to schedule them so they're a public notice and out there and we commit to the time, but we may want to remain flexible in actually scheduling those based on the flow of the information, not just meet because it's 2 weeks later.
Other thoughts?
I would like to just have the placeholder there to make sure that we don't let anything else kind of trample and invade that time. So I'd like to start with the every 2 weeks, and then I see there's a suggestion to make some adjustments to summer vacations, summer absences. But I'd rather have time and we finish early than not have time and then we've got to get schedules synced back together.
See a thumbs up from Brenda. Other thoughts on meeting? And just, I want to make sure one thing we talk about, we've got several mayors on here, obviously. Mayors, what night are your meetings? Because I'd like to avoid your meetings if possible, because I know that sometimes you have early meetings and it's a full day for getting ready for those. So any mayors, when are your meetings?
Chairman, this is Mayor Michelson from Prairie Village. I very much appreciate that. First and third Monday evenings for Prairie Village. If we could avoid those, I could be a participant in our meetings and our process. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, this is Mayor Schwak. I likewise am tied up on the first Monday of every month.
Okay, Mayor Roberts?
Chairman, we have second and fourth Thursdays.
Okay, and Mayor Bain?
Tuesdays.
With first and third?
Well, official voting on first and third, but we utilize second and fourth for committees regularly.
Okay, so Tuesdays are bad days, period.
Tuesdays are bad.
Okay.
Now, they start at 7, so if we want to start at 4 o'clock and go to 6, that would work. But if we're going to go towards 7 o'clock, that's out.
And I think it would be helpful for our schedules if we did the public hearings scheduled on the same regular period that we would have our own meeting. That way we can all get our schedule set. So if we did the second and fourth Mondays, does that work for folks?
Mr. Chairman, did I misspeak? I meant the second Monday.
Oh, second Monday. I wrote down the first. I'm not sure. My pen may have gotten it wrong. So we could do Tuesdays are out. There's only one Monday a month that's in. Wednesdays. Anybody have Leslie?
Thank you, Chairman. Leslie Riverolo. Wednesdays are Johnson County Park and Recreation District meeting days.
Which days of the month does that board meet?
That's third Wednesday.
Okay. So maybe the second and fourth Wednesdays?
I'm hoping maybe we do those early. Baser City Council, which I'm the city administrator of, meets second and fourth. At 7, so I'm kind of like Mayor Boehm. If we do early and I'm done by 6, I'm good.
Maybe we should start there. Does 4 to 6 timeframe work for folks, assuming we find a good day?
A lot of us have a religious worship on Wednesday night, so as long as we're done by 6 p.m.
Okay. And I think when we get to the public hearings, we're going to have to go later than that anyway, so that we can give people an opportunity after work and probably after dinner to participate. So if we did 4 to 6, and I thank you, Wendy, because I'm aware, yeah, we do have some folks that will be attending church services on Wednesday nights. So we could do the first and third. We can't do the third Thursday for me, for Community College Board of Trustees, so we can't do the first and third. We don't have to do the same day of the week. I guess we could do, that's getting too complicated.
First Wednesday, third Monday.
Does that get more complicated for folks than doing it?
Greg, Mike Boehm, the first Wednesday of the month, although we don't meet in July and August, is the Council of Mayors meeting starting at 5:30.
Okay.
So you'll take 3 or 4 of us out of that.
That was which Wednesday?
First Wednesday of the month.
Does the first and third,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Does the first and third Monday work?
Prairie Village has, the Mayor Michelson will have that meeting. What time does your meeting start, Eric?
Sorry, yeah, we start ours earlier. We start ours at 6, and I really have to be preparing at 5:30 for those.
Chairman Musil,
yes, Linda.
would Mondays of the 2nd and 4th, what time does Paula have, Schwak have that second Monday? What time is your meeting on the second Monday?
We start at 7 o'clock and I would need travel time. So if we were done by 6:30, I could just move from one to the next.
So we could do the 2nd and 4th Monday, then Paula, with your accommodation?
If we would start these do them from 4 to 6 on the 2nd and 4th Mondays?
Dawn, just so you know, the second Monday of the month is Overland Park Planning Commission, and if I'm on the agenda, I don't know when I'll come up, so, but usually I can be done by 4, so. 2nd and 4th Monday?
Have we looked at?
I'm sorry, Don?
Oh, have we looked at Thursday?
We can't do the 2nd and 4th Thursday. We could do the 1st and 3rd Thursday, perhaps?
Thursdays
Can't
are
do the
the
third.
county commissioner meetings, and there's times we don't know. Those may be all-day deals. They are starting to be.
Those are long days for staff. And the 3rd Thursday is my Board of Trustees meeting. So I think we're looking at the 2nd and 4th Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. Then we'll have a police escort, a sheriff's escort for Paula to the northern end of the county.
Greg, I will certainly defer to the will of this group. I have Greater Kansas City Chamber Board meetings on the 4th Mondays.
From
3:30 to 5:30. But I will accommodate. This is a priority, so.
Have the same conflict, but we'll follow suit. Mike Bain.
Okay. I think what I will try to do is when we get to the point where we're doing substantive votes, that we will defer it to the meeting when we expect the most people to be there so that we have full participation on those dates. If you miss a meeting, you will be able to review the recording and the discussion on the YouTube channel, if I understand correctly, Linda.
Yes.
So am I understanding that Brenda and Mike will be unable to make a 4th Monday? Who was the second person that said Zach?
So, Mike Bain.
Mayor Bain was the second person that had the issue that shared with Brenda. Chairman, I don't know. I know it gets weird, but if we're plugging it into our calendars ahead of time, I don't know if this, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, so I apologize to those that have the issue, but it looks like the second Monday is good. And then maybe the 4th Wednesday, like we said initially. I know that doesn't keep it regular as in charters in the past, but to ensure that people are given the opportunity to be here, I don't mind having it on 2 separate days of the month, I guess is what I'm saying, if that makes sure that more people can make it.
So the second Monday, we will lock in, I think. And then what does the 4th Thursday look like for folks? That is 10 days in between. So to Mike's point, we might not have time to get information back if we're asking staff to go research something or otherwise, but it's 10 days instead of 14, but allows us to have the meetings.
I heard Zach the 4th Wednesday.
Say that again, Brent.
Zach, did you say the 4th Wednesday or 4th Thursday?
I thought 4th Wednesday was the one that was more open for people. Thursday's
That's right.
The conflict.
You're right. Mayor Roberts has council meetings on the 4th Thursday. So it'd be 9 days in between. Thoughts on that? Second Monday and 4th Wednesday from 4 to 6.
Yep.
Okay, I've got some virtual thumbs up and some other thumbs up. If you are against it or have real concerns about it, please speak up because we are trying to make sure everybody can work on this. I'm going to show that as a consent.
I have church on Wednesdays, so it's kind of, I can't really change that.
Does 6 o'clock work to get you where you need to be, Wendy?
It is if we can get there by 6 o'clock, yes.
We're done by 6. Okay. That, my goal will be to be pushy but not a bully in getting us done every 2 hours. We have plenty of meetings, so we can finish something. If we've got another long discussion starting and it's 10 till 6, we'll quit early and pick up the new item at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And please hold me to that, Wendy. Okay. All right, we're going to go with the 4 to 6 p.m., the second Monday of the month and the fourth Wednesday of the month. So does that include, trying to open my calendar. The fourth Wednesday of April is the 28th. Does that work on calendars, even though we haven't had it before?
Yeah.
If not, let me know. Let's schedule our next meeting for Wednesday, April 28th at 4 o'clock. And the next one, the first Monday in May, or the second Monday in May, excuse me, will be May 10th.
And Chair Musel, I will go through through the end of the year or through February of next year and review dates to make sure if there's any holidays, if that's pleasing to you and the commission, and make sure that we don't have any other issues possibly with the second Monday and the fourth Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. And why don't you and I visit about that once you've done that review, and we'll get Dawn and Ed involved too if we have some conflicts that we need to resolve.
Okay. And we have Dawn has her hand up.
Oh, Dawn.
I'm not sure we've discussed this, but once we get back to real life and we're meeting in real life at a real location, is there still an option for people to join virtually should they desire to do that?
My intention would be to do, as Chair Eilert mentioned earlier, and as we do at the Board of Trustees at the community colleges, we leave it up to the individual member's option. I don't want to know your health situation. I want to respect your individual decision. I will encourage people to be there in person if they can, but I will absolutely respect anybody that wants to join by Zoom. And I think we will make that available to the general population by Zoom as well. Understanding that may limit somewhat the facilities we can use because it requires additional technology. But yeah, that would be my intention, unless I don't know why anything would change with that.
Yeah, as well as people may travel in the summer and they can still join us, even if they're in Hawaii.
Or Scottsdale, where I happen to be right now, which is very unusual for me, but it's working. Okay, so yeah, the intention would be then to have both an availability for in-person and an availability for Zoom to make Linda's life easier and the IT people at the county. I think what we'd like to do probably for each meeting is to ask you to indicate if you're not going to be there. We're not going to set up a space for you and socially distance it. So I think it would be helpful if we work out that process, Linda, so we can know who's going to be there in person and who's going to be there by Zoom.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
That would be, that would work well, but at the time I will everyone, if we are using Zoom, everyone will probably still get a Zoom invite just to make it simple and easy and that it's available.
Perfect. I just don't want staff setting up 5 tables that nobody sits at. And I do want to encourage people, when you get an invitation or an email from Linda, the sooner you respond, the easier you make it on her. And she will be very gracious, and she has more patience than I do, but we shouldn't test it, right? Right, Linda? So try to get back to her as soon as you can on any issue where she emails the group. Okay, I think we have our meeting schedule and our format for meetings. Let's talk about public hearings. Thoughts on how many we have? Oh, Joy, Coaston first?
Yeah, we really didn't discuss the location of the meeting, the physical meeting. Do we want to entertain the idea of the Arts and Heritage Center? As Chairman Eilert suggested, that seems like a good central location.
I think that would be a good location if we could have it. I didn't want to try to lock it in because I think it's, there will be technical issues and timing issues, but I think that would be the priority position location if we can get it. The rooms I'm familiar with in the basement of the administration building wouldn't allow us, they would probably allow for the entire charter commission to be there, but no public. All the public would have to appear by Zoom. There are other options in the community that are probably more costly, whether they're at the community college or the Overland Park Convention Center or the Embassy Suites in Olathe. But let's plan on the Heritage Center if it's available and the technology works.
Great, thanks.
Thoughts on public hearing and whether we have one? I appreciated Mayor Bain's comments, whether we have one when we're all blank slates and ignorant, or whether we wait until we have the commission and the public the opportunity to be more informed about the county's processes and then have one or more. We're not limited in how many we can have. We have to have a minimum of one. I would suggest we have two and that we have them available both in person and Zoom, and that we also find ways to encourage input through the website, which I know we will get to later and that will be available. Thoughts on public meetings, and we don't have to, we're not deciding this today. We're just thinking about it for the first time. Ed.
I would agree with Mayor Bain's observation that if you do the first public hearing too soon, that there's an awful lot of background to know about the county. It's a big organization, and I think hastening that first public hearing too soon might make it less productive than it otherwise could be. But I do think there ought to be a hearing early enough in our process that we can then incorporate whatever suggestions are made that we want to pursue and have enough time to do that. And I also think there ought to be one at the conclusion where the public has an opportunity to comment on our recommendations, suggestions, whatever. So I would concur that 2 is a good number, 1 fairly early, but not right off the bat here.
Other thoughts?
Commissioner, Chairman, this is Jim McGowan here. I concur with what was said earlier, but I'd also like to add a contingency part 2 for the first meeting, due to the fact that we have an overwhelming amount of public comments during our Johnson County Commission meetings, that it would only make sense to be able to give a secondary meeting if the public comments have not filtered all the way through. And we want to respect not only public's time, but also everyone on this commission. And so allowing a second possible meeting for folks to come, or folks that are on vacation, et cetera.
I think that's a good suggestion. Other thoughts? Tedrick.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're going to move to the website, but given the virtual world we've been living in for so long, it seems to me that we will get feedback perhaps through the website and other means if we were to do some outreach electronically. And thinking of that, I was thinking that to the extent that the county has done satisfaction surveys with citizenry and things like that, the more information we can gather that way, the better feel it gives us for the context of the comments we're going to get through whatever medium or means we get them. But I'm just throwing those ideas out there.
Is there anybody that thinks we should have a public hearing before the commission learns and the public has the opportunity to learn more about the county government? That seems to be the question at issue. Or do we wait till we have those briefings and then have a public hearing?
Chairman Randy Hutchins,
ahead,
I
Randy.
believe we should have the public hearing after we have an opportunity to learn more about the county, so questions are more relevant.
Okay. Anybody that feels otherwise? I don't think there are any shrinking violets on this group, so I'm waiting for people to speak up whenever they have something that they think they want to add to, object to, or supplement, or whatever. I think we need to get in that habit as we go forward. Okay, I think that indicates that we will work. The executive committee will work with the Chair Eilert in getting the briefing schedule for the next few meetings that will include, County Government 101, and we'll have those meetings. And then as we go along in those, we will talk about when it's appropriate to have that first public hearing. We'll plan on at least 2 public hearings, and we'll make sure there's enough time so that no members of the public are cut off that want to speak either by Zoom or in person. Fair enough? Okay. Meeting topics we've covered a little bit. I think one of the things that we want to think about, I don't think we need to discuss it today, we certainly don't need to make any decisions today, is in 2011, it appeared as though there was a period in which the commission discussed various issues or topics that might want to be part of the official review of the commission. And I'm going to assume, and Mike, add to this if you can, that each individual commissioner had the opportunity to place things before the group, and that then they were prioritized in some manner to determine how much time would be spent on them. But I think that's something we need to do again at some point in the process, not tonight, but to try to figure out how we're going to let everybody have an opportunity to put a topic on the table for at least initial discussion, and then make a determination as to whether or not more discussion was warranted, or whether it was something that didn't have enough support on the commission that we'd rather spend our time on other topics. Is that kind of how it worked, Mike?
That's correct. Everyone had an opportunity initially to put things before, and it informed us what we needed to hear from the staff in many cases as well. And then we kind of prioritize those. You could always bring stuff up later in the game, but if I think a review of a number of topics up front, anyone's ideas, not an up and down necessarily, but just get a consensus on a large percentage, 40%. I don't mean it doesn't have to be unanimous or 50%, but some number of breaking point where we move these forward, put these aside. We can always double back, but if we don't get some focus, we'll spend a lot of time plowing the ground on an issue that just doesn't have support and isn't going to change, I don't think. So some prioritization and maybe reprioritization as we move forward is a good idea, maybe at the first of each meeting.
Do you remember where that occurred in the process? Was it, I assume it was after the county had done all their briefings?
Well, there were a couple of topics that came right up from day one, as opposed to, and probably will be before us again this time. But we didn't start really chewing on those until we got through the education process.
What's the thinking? Oh, Brenda.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the amount of time that Linda is giving us to get the information. And I don't like being surprised. I don't like agendas that come out, 15 minutes before a meeting or the day before, so that I have some time to digest. So as we're considering this process, if it could be, commitment on the part of this body to give our executive team adequate time to put together a cohesive and comprehensive agenda, and for the rest of us to be able to have enough information to react, and that as rare as possible, we aren't being asked to make decisions on information that we've received the same day, that we're receiving the information, vetting it, discussing it, just as you're doing here, and then we have a chance to vote on it later wherever possible. I know that's not always the case, but I appreciate that.
I think given the time frame,
Greg, to that end, I think it would be a good idea if we kind of adopted the next agenda at the end of the meeting, so everyone had an idea of what was going to be discussed at the next meeting, gave staff time to prepare for that. And then what was on the agenda, what was on the quote unquote approved agenda for the next meeting was known by all. If topics come up, we could potentially be nimble, but also if topics come up at a meeting, we can certainly defer that particular item to a following meeting. But that way we're all prepared each meeting for a certain set of facts or items, as opposed to anything we can think of being dropped in a lap at a meeting.
I like the idea of approving a tentative agenda. I think, especially when we're going Monday to Wednesday, the second or the whatever Wednesday we're going to, the fourth Wednesday to the second Monday is going to be a longer period of time. So it'll be a little more time, but I think I don't have a problem with that idea. I think we should be able to do that. Last time, again, we're going to keep looking at Mike a little bit because he's our only experienced Charter Commission member, I believe. May correct me if I'm wrong. Paula?
I believe Mr. Island, wasn't he also on the last?
Chris, I misspoke. You were on the last Charter Commission. I know I admitted him back in.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well, we're looking to you too then for guidance. It seemed like in having the county commissioners at the first briefing, I would like to know more about the county departments and agencies and how they function so that when the commissioners come in front of me, I can ask them questions that are a little better informed. Does that make sense to anybody else, or would you like to hear from the commissioners first?
You know, Greg, this is Brent McCune. I think I would like to have more information as far as just looking at an organizational chart and understanding, you know, the board of commissioners and administration, and just I hate to use the name layers, but just an organizational chart of our county.
Anybody else have any other thoughts on what, I mean, I'm trying to look for what do we do on April 28th? My thought would be we probably hear from the county manager and start hearing from the different departments as to what maybe we hear an overview of everybody that's out there, and then we start breaking it down and hearing from wastewater and hearing from planning, and hearing from the aviation commission, Parks and Rec, those things in subsequent meetings. However many we can fit in.
I looked on the website, and when you look on the website, there's topics across the top, and you click on it and there's like a little menu underneath it. I'd like to, I mean, it feels logical to go as the website goes, possibly as a suggestion, with the big topic and the subtopics underneath it. If you want to look at the Johnson County government website, that might be an option. And it has everything kind of in buckets.
Right, and I just wanted to, my only thought was put the county commissioners, either current or former, last in that briefing process, so that we all kind of know when you as a county commissioner or a former county commissioner say X, I now understand the relationship there and why you might be saying that. Mike Beam?
Yes, Maury Thompson is here with us tonight. I think it might make some sense to get him to weigh in a little bit. Is there a logical, chronological way that we can proceed through this where things build upon each other, or is it truly silos?
Thank you, Mayor Bain. Maury Thompson here. Yeah, I appreciate the comment about the website, but quite frankly, that may not be laid out the best. I like the idea of the organizational chart, working from it as the framework, and I think we could do that.
With the consensus of the group, then Dawn and Ed and I will work on a briefing process that starts more with the organizational chart, works through departments, and ends up with at the top with the county commissioners. And I did like the idea of hearing from some former commissioners. Doesn't mean I'm going to let Ed speak very much, but other county commissioners with respect to their view of how the county government has worked since the charter was adopted in 1999, and how maybe it should work. I suspect we'll hear different versions that might be enlightening. So that's how we'll proceed, and go ahead, Ed.
I would just add, I'm sure that Maury and Penny and their staff can visit with the commissioners if the commissioners feel like there's something that we need to know before the commissioners themselves come to speak. Surely the staff would be able to incorporate that in our early briefings, I think.
Part of what I think we should do as our own educational work is read the 2011 report, both the both the majority report and the minority report and comments. I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect some of those issues will be revisited this time from the public and from members of the commission. So that's a good place kind of to start. But many of us, for all of our work in other layers of government or in civic and charitable, don't touch the county government as much as we might do our city government or the state legislature or the school board. So getting that advanced knowledge, I think, would be helpful. Greg Shelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, on that same note, I would encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to download and review the current budget, which is also available for download through the website. That will be good prep work as we start to interface with county staff.
The county budget, which would be then reviewed and adopted, the current county budget, and then a new one will be adopted in August. Right. Every line item in it?
Just for fun, yeah. Right.
There are good, I know there are good summaries of that. Vicky's laughing because she used to put those together in cities. So at the community college, we went into such detail that we knew when the espresso machine would be replaced in one of the coffee lounges that serves the Performing Arts Center. It was on there every year. Why are we buying an espresso machine? And it was there in case the other one went dead or something. So probably don't need that detail, but we do need to know where the money comes from and where it goes. I think that's important. And part of that, I think, would be a legal discussion about how the county doesn't operate in a vacuum. It can't do whatever it wants to do. It's a creature of state government. It's a creature of state statute, limited by state law. So understanding how that level of government works and what it's free to do and what it can't do is important. I'm sorry, Brenda, I interrupted you.
No, I interrupted you. Sorry. I just wanted to request, like, for things like the budget, the website is laid out to accommodate and put all those things in one place. If we could request that be placed there, or anything else that I've already, the last charter and reporter there, just to keep us so that when we're on these calls and in between calls, we can find everything in one place. That would be very helpful.
Okay, why don't we move then to the website? Linda sent out the website to everybody, not active yet, but for us to review. I liked what I saw. I suggested to Linda that for our purposes and for the future, if we could put all of the agendas and minutes and the final reports of each charter commission in an archive and just keep that accumulating through the years, it would probably save future Lindas a lot of work. But we're putting it all on our current Linda. Linda, do you want to speak to the website and any other comments you received from your email?
I can share it here if there's any other discussion. One other thing besides your comments, Chairman Musel, was Paula Schwach had I think it was you, I apologize, on the contact. The other was who's going to be taking care of this contact, where can be very uniform in getting people's names, addresses, their email, phone numbers, topic, and their comments. Just to give a brief explanation of this, of what the plan was, and this also goes in tune to keeping things from being considered a meeting, is that anything that came in through the contact would come to our Charter Commission email, which basically comes to me, and then I will distribute it out to the 25 commission members through the listserv. And then that way you guys would see any comments that are coming in from the public on this. There was a question about response to these. If it's normal questions of, like, situations of where's the 2011 final report, or those types of things that I can just respond to the public with those items, I would. But if there was other comments pertaining to the charter, for the commissioners, I would forward those to all of you as a group. So I'm not for sure. I know there was discussion as far as responding, but I think legal, Cynthia Dunham kind of had a response for that. Cynthia?
I'm sorry, Linda, on which?
If as far as having a response from the commission directly to comments out there, I was under the understanding from you that would probably not be advisable.
Just, I think the concern was starting to engage in an interactive communication through email back and forth with multiple commission members would be a concern under Open Meetings Act.
And I think, Cynthia, that it would be useful at the start of the next meeting to do a 10-minute reminder of the COMA requirements. Some of us have had them drilled in our head for years and still don't know that we understand them completely. But just the do's and don'ts. I think the one don't probably is don't reply all when you're commenting on something, and don't start communicating with more than a majority of a quorum.
Yes, and we can review that next meeting. And I think that's what Linda's getting to, is that if an email goes out or a contact goes out, and before we know it, we have a number of interactive emails going back and forth between multiple commission members. And before you know it, you've got more than a majority engaged in this. And so there's just a risk of having emails going back and forth. And as you say, the don't reply to all is the simplest rule to remember.
And I know all of us, I know as an elected official, I get frustrated sometimes because I can't reply. I'm worried about replying in a way that is effective, but is not violative of the act, because I want the rest of my elected officials on my board to know where I stand on something. But when you start doing that, and then somebody else replies, okay, or I agree, or I don't agree, you get in trouble. And so just avoiding it is the best. And I think what we may need to do is come up with a process by which we summarize and indicate in meeting minutes or otherwise that the comments that have been received have been forwarded to commission members, and that we're going to anticipate all of us are going to do our due diligence and read them and consider them as we move forward in the process. But let's talk, Cindy, about kind of doing that in a way to make sure that we're all careful.
Greg?
Yes, I can't see anybody because of the screen share, so just go ahead and give your name and go for it.
Sure, it's Mike Boehm. As I understand this card, this is for the public to reach out to the commission as a group. If it's just housed on this website, we'll all see it, but there won't be a reply all button that would even allow us to interact as a group unless we pulled out a listserv of everybody on the commission to respond to. So I understand the big picture of open meetings and open records and all of that, but I don't think this is going to set it. The worst thing we can do is compile this into group messaging where we're able to reply all rather than just have it. I don't need another email every day when someone comments. I might need a reminder once a week to say, go check the comments.
I think the way this contact works, it is a form contact, but it will not directly be stored on here. These contact messages will be sent to our Charter Commission email, which I will then go out and I would forward them to all of you through the listserv. These will not be stored directly anywhere on the website where you and or the public can get to. This is just a form.
Can we make sure, though, that if you're going to do it that way, that once a week or maybe a week before our next meeting, we get a group of them as opposed to having them forwarded to the listserv every time a new comment occurs?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment?
Joy.
Yes, you may.
Coaston.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. Linda, is it possible to just forward these comments individually to the 25 charter members? Like, just have an
Yes.
automatic forward, so you don't have to do the listserv and it's not another burden on you. And then it's not a group email. We each just individually get that forwarded email and we can respond as we see fit. Does that make
I
sense?
know, yes, it does. I know there was a discussion, Cindy or Mari may be able to step in and speak to this also, is if there is, how do I want to put it? If we would start getting some type of emails that are actually not for the Charter Commission through this, we were going to I was going to sift through those so that those would not be sent to all 25 of you to deal with, or in the situation someone is just asking for a document or for some information that I can just provide. Cindy, do you have any comment on that?
That was my recollection too, is that we were just trying to avoid email, just getting too many emails on things that really, again, could be handled at the staff level.
This is Tedrick. I just had a suggestion. Maybe it's okay to have the link say contact, but maybe where it says contact on the actual form, just say something like, please provide your input. And then if you're worried about just getting too many individual emails, which I tend to ignore like spam, maybe if you digest them on a particular period of time, every couple of days or every week or so, then we're looking at sort of everybody's thoughts all at once.
I would suggest that we defer exactly how we're going to respond to the contact thing to at least the next meeting so that we can, Dawn and Ed and I can talk with Linda and Maury and Cindy, make sure we do it right and not burden everybody on the commission with forwarded emails all the time.
And if it is your pleasure as the commission, the one thing that Chairman Musil mentioned was maybe doing them as a group and sending them out every few days. I can do that too. I do that in a situation of ones that come into the BOCC commissioners, the ones that come through our written comment form, those are put together as a group, and I do a package deal to the BOCC commissioners for them to read and digest before the BOCC meeting on Thursday. That's an option.
Mayor Bain.
We talked about having public input in public meetings, yet we're going to not show this to the public. I don't know why this can't be housed on the website. I mean, it could be scrubbed for inappropriate language and things of that nature, but why would we not create it? Why would this not be part of our public record as we're moving forward and we just go look at it here? It eliminates all the emails, it eliminates the group discussion potential. This is part of the record we'll be creating and responding to. If we choose to respond to an individual, we can pull out their email and send a response. There probably ought to be a disclaimer that said, thank you for your input. You most likely will not be contacted by 25 individuals in response.
It can just say that this will be made available to the Charter Commission members. Then individual members can respond if they
who may
want
or
to.
may not respond.
Yeah. Does anybody have an issue with Mike's suggestion that we try to find a way to have these available to the public on the website?
I think it's great.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I would caution against there is making sure that we don't publish email addresses and become more aware of consumer privacy protection with that.
I can't see you saying that.
I'm sorry, say again?
Who is this?
This is Greg Shelton.
Hi, Greg. I can only see a few folks because of the screen share.
My mistake.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I don't know what the privacy issues are when you put your contact information on an email, or whether we will actually require that people put that on there, or we won't look at their comment. Another issue that comes up frequently in public hearing issues. So I think we've got some things to discuss about the about the contact sheet and how we deal with it, and we can come back on the 28th with some suggestions. Other parts of the website, Linda, that you thought you got comments on or wanted to address?
Here would be that there has been a suggestion of loading previous documents. Besides, we have the charter 2011 Charter Commission report out here. But there has been a suggestion of loading such as minutes from those. And that would be, if it's agreeable and that's what you would like. I know that I do have most of the 2011 Charter Commission minutes that I could go forward with our DTI department to get those possibly loaded out here for review and made public.
That was actually a suggestion I made, that again, to have everything Charter Commission related from every 10 years in one place for residents to go research if they wanted it. And it just seemed to make sense to have it all in one place. Any thoughts on that? Okay.
I would just make the comment, we should have all historical charter reports on here. If it's easy to go to a quick copy and paste type of action to get 2011 in there for minutes, we could do that. We'll create this as we go forward and add minutes. But I don't want to spend hours of county time and money recreating something from previous two reports if it's not readily available.
Well, my thought, Mike, I agree with that. Open records request can take a lot of staff time, but my thought was if we did it once, then the next time somebody asks for it, you point to the website and it's there. But I think again, that was an idea that we can talk about with Linda and find out more about what kind of staff time it's going to take.
2001 or 2000 is the first charter, right?
Right.
That probably ought to be added, but not necessarily minutes.
Those are on stone tablets.
Yes,
Sorry,
I can.
laughed.
Yes, I can look into getting the 2000, I think it's 2001 is what it'd be considered, or 2000 Charter Commission report, their final report. I'm not quite sure about the minutes on that, but I think the final report gives a lot of the information from that time.
Other thoughts on the website from Charter Commission members?
One other thing I will just show you on this, we plan on putting the schedule out here, an agenda, and if there's an agenda packet, if there's other items, which for most meetings, there would be at least the minutes, draft minutes that would be attached. There could be other items. And then once the minutes are approved and signed, the minutes would be loaded here at that time. So this is my plan for this part of the website. Of course, we'll have the calendar where people could get to the agenda and those types of items here. Like I say, this is still a work in process. We have the list of the members and then from the home page, there's besides across the top of getting to items, we've tried to make it interactive of also ways to get from here. This would list the next meeting, an agenda once it's posted. Again, another way to see the members and just another way to get to the current charter reports or whatever documents we have out there. And then again, it lists information about the Charter Commission, history. And I think that pretty much covers what we have at this time. And we can try to incorporate these other items into that.
Linda, on the chart you showed that had the date and then the agenda packet and the minutes either pending or we'll have minutes when they're approved. Can we add a box that adds a link to the YouTube recording of that meeting?
Yes, I apologize. That was another item that I plan on adding to this. I have to get with my DTI department and make sure of how we're going to load the videos and make it available so it's a link and all of you or the public could click on that and go back and watch the video.
What I know one thing we're going to have to do, and I harass professional staff at the college with this, Linda, is an acronym list. DTI, I assume that has something to do with tech, ITIS.
Yes, that's technology. I apologize, and information
No,
services.
that's okay. It happens. We get into our lingo, but and we'll learn that as we go through the briefing with the county. The other thing that I had mentioned, and I thought we had heard in one of our earlier meetings, was whether we wanted an opportunity, if it's necessary, in addition to listing a roster of the members, to have any type of short bio. And I raised this with the risk that we would need some format that limits you to certain things. We're not can't give everybody a full page. Does anybody believe we should have a short bio of each of us on the website someplace to show the folks that are on the commission? If not, we'll leave it with just the roster.
An option is to be able to click on their name and it takes them to their LinkedIn profile. Not that mine is very updated, but a LinkedIn profile would be an easy.
That would be good.
I would prefer, if we're doing something with members, that we have a standard format and not promote or require people to join a particular group. Although I'm on LinkedIn, I think I'm still on LinkedIn working at 2 different firms, although I'm still only getting 1 salary. So I don't know. I can't get rid of one of them because there are no human beings that work for LinkedIn. Linda, could you take off the screen share again? So I think we're done with the website and I can see everybody again. Thank you. Thoughts on a bio, or just leave it with our roster? I mean, people can Google every one of us and find what we want, but Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would just guess to say like a simple 1-page PDF, however that looks. And you fill what you need to fill on there, and you can always just not look at it.
Any other thoughts? I don't want to make work for us if we don't think that's helpful to the public. Tedrick is hurting his neck, shaking no.
I think either a couple of sentences or we just let people Google us because we want to tailor it to what we're doing here.
I'm seeing some thumbs up and heads in an affirmative position to just stay with the roster.
This is Brent. I would agree with Tedrick as well. I think just a 1 or 2 sentence bio of who we are and maybe what we do. I think it's important that our community knows who is a part of this charter commission, who's working on their behalf. I think there's some credibility to that.
What I would like to see then is some uniformity of format that indicates maybe not what company you work for, but are you employed in the financial services industry and you're active in Big Brothers Big Sisters and you've held an elected position, or that was my problem with even suggesting this, is how far you go to demonstrate the diversity of this group. You could go quite a ways and demonstrate how broadly representative this is of the county, but we might get out of hand. And speaking of hand, Zach has his up.
I forgot I did that. I'm sorry, Chairman. Thank you. I was going to echo what Brent and I think Tedrick said earlier. I think I was trying to find the document, but I assume Linda put it together on her agenda. You know, she gave a very, very brief description of the people. I think that's almost more than sufficient there with respect to where we work, what we do, and then if there's a service organization we're part of or whatever, I'd allow for that. But I think 3 sentences at most is all we need if we choose to do it.
And Chairman Musil, what I think Zach is speaking to was what was put on the minutes for when we went through and had each person speak about themselves at the first meeting.
Right. Vicky,
Yes, Chairman, the only thing that I would like to add is, once we get the website finalized and everything, I think a lot of people don't realize that this is even going on. And if we could make some effort, or the county staff could make some effort to publicize that this charter commission is going on, and that the website's available, and that they can watch the meetings on YouTube if they want, I think that would be beneficial too.
will there be an effort on a Johnson County Facebook or Twitter or whatever for promotion of this? I know I'm on the US 69 Highway Advisory Group for KDOT, and they have been very active on social media and offering things you can share, which is very easy for me because I'm simple. To Vicky's point, so that all of us are alerting our communities that this is going on. And if we have any gurus who know how to do that, we can always appoint a subcommittee to work with the county DTI to do that.
Maury Thompson, is that something we would possibly speak to our PIO department about?
Yes, I believe we're happy to do that. My concern is here making sure that staff maintain an appropriate balance and not be making decisions on behalf of the Charter Commission about what should be publicized and what shouldn't. So if we can set those parameters, yes, of course, we're here to provide assistance.
I think all we're talking about is publicizing the fact that we exist, and somewhere other than just the website, when our meetings are being held and how they can be accessed. Public notice for COMA, Kansas Open Meeting Act, is one thing, and having people actually know what's going on is another. And I'm trying to remember, Maury or Cindy or Linda, in the last Johnson County magazine, I remember flipping through it. I will not admit to reading it word for word. Do I remember seeing something about the Charter Commission, or am I making that up?
You do. There was something in there. Yeah. Good job.
And that goes to every residential address in the county.
Correct.
I think that's an advantage that we can utilize. Maybe we could, I know individual cities, and at least Overland Park still sends out a quarterly newsletter that maybe we could get them to put something in it. I don't know, but I agree with Vicki. We need to make sure the more people know about this and are able to comment, the better. We're pushing up on, we are past our time, but Greg, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg Shelton. I'd just say that, with the group of people we have on this call, just not for nothing, but we probably have 10 times the following than the Johnson County government social media platform. So definitely, get the word out through your own channels. That's probably one of the best things we all could do to help raise awareness.
All right, well, I think we have some direction, and now we have some officers to go work with Maury and Cindy and Linda to try to put some flesh around these bones. So we will do that. We'll try to get an agenda out for the 28th meeting, which is, let's see, is that that's the fourth Wednesday? Third Wednesday. What did we decide? I've got two dates written down here. Second Monday.
And the fourth
Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday.
Okay. So for the 28th, so that'd be at least maybe a week in advance, we'll shoot for having an agenda out so that you can see what kind of briefing order we've thought about. And if you'll give us that kind of discretion to figure that out with the county staff, that would be helpful. Well, we'll find out later whether this was a productive 2 hours or not, because if I screw this up, you only have yourselves to blame. But I appreciate all the discussion, and I think we've come up with some good ideas for organization. So is there any other item that anybody would like to discuss today as part of the business of the Charter Commission?
Greg, did we set a location, Mike Bain?
We have not, and I think we should plan on the 28th being Zoom only. The counties, but if we can figure out a location where we can do some in person, we will ask everybody to indicate whether they would be willing to do that in person. Does that work? Okay. Joy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to thank Linda for all of her work, especially in trying to corral this group and getting meetings set and everything else. And I know the website has taken time. So, and thank you everyone else for really a terrific first official meeting.
We will all use a cat filter next time, since that's what Linda is hurting. All right, if there's no further business, I'll accept a motion to, Zach?
I was just going to make that motion, Chairman. Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Zach Thomas, seconded by Wendy Bingizer. Seconded by Wendy. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Thank you all, and I'll try to fulfill your confidence in me. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Great job.